I have victory over codependency, and I struggle with fear of failure, and my name is Trey.
Hi, Trey.
In 1999, I was living in San Diego, divorced, separated from my stepdaughter, and I was angry with God. So angry, I walked away from Him and from church. My life was beginning to spin out of control. My brother suggested I move to Las Vegas and start over. I was recruited by the Venetian for a job at a hotel that they were about to open. But after a couple of interviews, I was offered the job. So I moved to Las Vegas in May of 1989. But when I got to Las Vegas, the job I thought I had was rescinded because they thought I lied on my application. I'm thinking, great, this is just what I needed. I just left a great job and withdrew from college in San Diego, only to move to Las Vegas and lose the job before I even started it. I finally landed a job that I didn't like, and I began to party 7 nights a week at the club, looking for fulfillment and to forget the pain of my divorce and the separation of my stepdaughter. My life eventually became even more chaotic than it was in San Diego. I became very promiscuous, and I found temporary fulfillment in one-night stands and very short relationships. The drinking and partying never let up. I thought I was having a good time, but no matter how much fun I was having, it always left me feeling empty in the end. My brother would often invite me to church, but I would never take him up on his offer. After all, I was still mad at God for my divorce and for allowing my ex-wife to rip my stepdaughter out of my life. I started making friends with shady characters out of the club, allowing them to be an influence in my life. 1 Corinthians 15:33 and 34 says, "Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. Come back to your senses as you ought, and stop sinning. For there are some who are ignorant of God. I say this to your shame." See, I come from a really good family, but they all lived in Mississippi, with the exception of my brother. So I thought I could get away with living a wild and crazy life without anybody else knowing.
I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I struggle with self-worth, but have victory over chemical dependency. My name is Eva.
Hi, Eva.
I was born and raised in Ann Arbor, Michigan, to a family that I felt as though did not love me. My parents divorced when I was 11 years old, and it broke my heart so much that I did not value marriage or myself. My mother always told me how she never wanted a daughter, and would only allow me to show anger in the home. Nobody had ever asked how my day was, and I often felt lonely. My brother and I were not close. My mother was always at work. It seemed like the only time she was proud of me was when I was doing things around the house. But I quickly learned nothing I did would ever make her happy, so I soon stopped caring. She would constantly hurt me with her words, so I began to suppress my emotions by picking up cigarettes and drinking. I thought God had forgotten me, and so I began to forget about Him and live the life for me. I ended up moving in with my boyfriend at 15 years old, but ended up going back home when I was 22 when I broke up with a different boyfriend. I still cared to please my mother and make her proud of me, so I had 3 jobs for a continuous of 5 years. But again, she still was not happy. My great-grandmother had passed away, and she was the only person who told me that I was pretty. She was the only one person who made me really feel special. Shortly after her passing, and still feeling unloved at home, I was asked to try hard drugs, and I figured, why not? They already see me as this person, and it consumes my life for 3 years.
I began to realize my life was miserable and I needed to make some changes. I thought maybe getting a girlfriend would solve all my problems. I would have someone who loves me and someone who would be there for me. While I was out at the club, I saw this girl who looked like the girl next door. She ended up becoming my girlfriend. And after a few months, she invited me to church, which was the Crossing. I said to her, God and I are not on good terms right now, and I am not going to church. Then I remembered how badly I wanted a girlfriend, so I thought I would play it cool and just go to church with her. But the first time I came to church, I walked through the doors, and the Holy Spirit said to me, "This is where I want you to be." I had not heard from God for many years, and of course the message was just for me. And I continued to come each Sunday. It would be the third week that I came. The message was about running from God. I was crying uncontrollably during the message because that was me, running from God and from all of my problems. After the message, Pastor Shane said, "We normally don't do this, but if you've been running from God, please come down to the altar." I literally got up from my chair and ran down to the altar. It was Pastor Tim Coop who met me there, and he asked me what was wrong. And I said, "I've been running from God." So he prayed for me, and at that moment, I recommitted my life back to Jesus. When I got back to my seat, my girlfriend asked me what was wrong with me and why was I crying so much. She didn't understand what was happening. And eventually I realized that this was not a God-honoring relationship, so I ended it since I just rededicated my life back to Jesus.
During my addiction, I ended up losing all my jobs and was living from house to house without a true destination that I felt safe and secure. And it was in an overdose state that I cried out to God, and I asked him, "Why would you create mankind? For us to just die in our selfishness? What was the point to us living?" And it was in that moment that I realized I was living life for me. So I told God, "If you get me out of my high, I will live for you." And then the next day, I woke up just fine. And my first initial thought was, crap, because what had this have happened anyway? But I went home, and to my surprise, my mother was not there. I found a book that was called "You Can Heal Your Life." I knew in that moment that I needed to get out of my situation. I made it apparent to look for signs that might be from God, and Las Vegas kept coming up. I ended up coming out here for New Year's and found someone who needed a roommate. And I told this person, all I have to do is go home, save some money before I can make it back out here. I was still wavering back and forth if this was something God wanted me to do. So I told God, if I get a flat tire on my way to Vegas, then I know you want me to stay in Michigan. But if I make it to Vegas, then I know you want me there. So 3 months later, I packed everything in my car along with my dog and left everything I knew. This was in 2008.
I got baptized in 2010, and my life was really thriving for Jesus. I got my godly swag back, and life was great. I was leading small groups, serving as a cameraman, helping backstage during the services, and I become a leader in the singles ministry. A couple of years later, I got a random text one morning from one of my close friends from church. The text simply said, "I prayed for you this morning." I'm thinking, don't we always pray for one another? Well, that night, my life would be changed forever. While I was sleeping, I woke up into a vision. I was sitting on my bed and a bright light covered my entire room with a presence so powerful that I knew it had to be God. I was shaking and tears began to flow from my eyes. And I said, "Lord," and I heard a voice out of the light say, "I'm calling you. And these are the gifts that I've given you." As the words being spelled out were passing by my eyes, the vision ended and I woke up. I called my friend and I told her about my dream. And she said, "Remember I told you I prayed for you? It was a prayer just for you. And I asked God to show you the purpose of your life." I'm thinking, this is crazy. Does God want me to become a pastor? The following Sunday, I went to one of the pastors and told him about my dream. And he said that I should pray and ask God to confirm what he showed me in the vision. So I took 3 days off of work to fast and pray. I was so excited to hear from God again. But by the third day, I was starving and weak, and I didn't hear from God at all, which brought some confusion. However, day after day, week after week, I couldn't stop thinking about the vision that I had. It was one of the realest moments of my life, and I began to have this burning passion that God was truly calling me into the ministry. So after about a few months, I went back and asked that same pastor, "What school did you go to and what degree did you get?" He told me he went to Lincoln Christian University and got a master's degree in Bible and theology. And I told him, I'm going to go to that school and I'm going to get that same degree. Well, it was toward the end of the year, and I was thinking that there was no way I could get into school by January. But anyways, I thought I would decide to try. So I grabbed my transcripts from UNLV, And I sent them in, and I ended up getting an interview the same week. And yes, I got enrolled for graduate school in January of 2013.